In this tutorial, I'll be walking you through the database setup on Airtable. Now, it's super important to understand how the setup has been done, and I'll be walking you through the entire table explaining how each of these fields correlate with both the design and functionality. Now, even if you decide to shift to another database, I believe that the principle for setting up the functionality is going to be the same. So with that being said, let's jump right into it. So we're currently on the clients table, and we're going to be covering clients, projects, questionnaire, proposal, and contract. And for the rest, we will address that on another video. Okay, so the first question is which fields do you interact with in a given table, and which ones do you, avoid? So in this case, what you want to do is on the clients table, we have a lot of fields here, and the truth is there aren't the fields that requires interacting with. The long list is actually very short. So I have this separate view here called editable fields. So let me just walk you through that. We have the full name, which is a formula, and then we have the profile image for our client, and then the first name of the client, last name, email, password, projects, link field, and office address. Most of them are self-explanatory, but let me just quickly explain the password field. So if you remember correctly, on our last video, when we set up the authentication, which is basically adding the client onto our Firebase authentication, we would need to create a dummy password for them. So the idea is that you create that dummy password, and then you set up, you send them an email letting them know that, hey, your authentication has all been set up. This is the email and this is the password. So please feel free to change the password at a later stage. So yeah, that's what this field is for, to store that dummy password that you used for setting up their authentication. And over here, the office address, this is completely optional. So let me just quickly show you a proposal. So this office address is basically this one right here. Now, at the time of making this, I thought initially that I'm going to link this address to the Airtable database, but yeah, I didn't. But I still do like to store the client's office address on my database either way. So this is something that is completely optional. This is not linked to anything. It's not linked to Wized or any sort of automation. So you can delete this or you can keep it. That's completely up to you. So yeah, that's that for the clients table. Let me show you the master view. Now, obviously, so yeah, just to clarify, the editable fields are the only fields that you interact with. And forget about all the other fields that you notice here, because they are primarily for our for our Wized application to interact with. But let me walk you through what you're looking at. Okay, so we've covered till office address. So let's start from files. Again, files are, if I take you to the dashboard, so you'll notice that we have a space here for all the files that the client has access to. So essentially that's what it is. You can see what files are linked to a specific client. Then we have a lookup field called the active project checker. So it's quite self-explanatory, but so basically this checks which projects are active. So this client, as you can see, the first record over here has 2 active projects. And then, so 2 active projects. The reason behind this is if I go into the dashboard and yeah, see this button over here called switch project? This button has a conditional visibility. So it only pops up when the client, this specific client who's currently logged in, is part of multiple projects. So when you open this up, we have 2 projects here, or this client can have 5 or 6. Yeah, it doesn't matter, but essentially that's what it does. So we have this active project checker, and then we have another field that adds up the amount of projects that it has, and then we use that for this formula field, which is called switch project enable option. So essentially, depending if the client has more than 1 project, and if it's true, then we switch on this option here. And if it's false, then it's going to be hidden away because the client is only part of one project, so it doesn't make sense for the client to have a switch project button. Awesome. So that's what we also do. We utilize lookup fields from other tables, and then we start producing additional functionality inside a given table. Also, in case if you're wondering, why do we have so many fields on the client's record? I mean, you know, and that's because we're pulling in a lot of information about the client and the project as well, which is why you will notice that on Airtable, the client's table and the projects table is quite big, and it's doing a lot of things, but don't be overwhelmed by it. We're going to be walking through all this right now. So let's head back over to client. Okay, all right, and then we have another lookup field for project names for switch. So let me just stretch this out. Okay, so as you can see that there are two projects that this specific client is a part of. In case if you're wondering, why do we have this lookup field? We have this lookup field so that it creates an array of the text, the name, essentially. So we use that over here to lay the text inside each of these options to render this out. And that's coming from here. We're obviously, when we set up our data in and data out requests, we're going to be going through this all over again. But yeah. Okay, then we have the interesting bit, which is the profile image true and profile image false. So basically we applied a formula here to check if this client has uploaded any profile image. And if they did, then put their record ID in here. And if they haven't, then just leave this blank. And if they don't have a profile, and for profile image false here, we want to target the ones that hasn't uploaded their profile image. And then what we do is the ones that hasn't uploaded their profile image, we just grab the first initial of their name. And yeah, we just put the output this here. In case if you're wondering which part of the design this is related to, it's the one over here. So notice that on collaborators, we have the collaborators with our images, and the ones that doesn't have an image, you know, the initial is coming from Airtable. Now, the reason why I'm walking through all this is because on our next video, which essentially starts off with the database setup, I'm not going to be walking through too much on the Airtable side of things. All right, and then we have our collaborator invite, which is a, now this is something that we are not going to interact with this field inside of clients. We will be directly interacting with this from here, from this table. Now, collaborator invite is basically for this feature over here. So for the event, if the client would like to add a team member, so they can add the email, and then that email is going to be basically it's going to show up here. It also tells you which emails this client has invited. So yeah, that's what this field is for. Then we have the assignee, assigned by, and then agenda comments. Again, fields that you're not supposed to interact with, and these fields are basically these tickets over here. So these are the tickets where the client has created and assigned the ticket to someone else, or the tickets that has been assigned to the client. So yeah, that's what these three fields are for. So just to recap, on the client's table, you're only meant to be interacting with these fields. That's it. And for the rest, you know, you just leave it as is, because Wized will be interacting with this. Okay, so now that's out of the way. Let's move over to projects. Now, projects has the same story as clients as well. Before I dive into the entire thing, let me show you the editable fields. So these are the fields that you're going to interact with manually. So you have the project name. Of course, you set up this project name when everything has been officially signed off on the contract, you're about to prepare the dashboard for the client. So this is an important step. You need to prepare the content of that dashboard. So you would create a new record, which in our case, we're going to be focusing on this specific project. So I would create project name here, and then status. This is very important. The status can be marked as archived or active. So if it's marked as archived, then if it's marked as archived, then the project is not going to be shown on the dashboard. So, but we'll be circling back to this feature more later on. Okay, and then we have the project brief. So basically this project brief is actually the one from the proposal. So this client who turned in the project brief is not the proposal, it's the questionnaire, my bad. So yeah, make sure that you select the correct questionnaire and then attach it here to the appropriate project brief link. And then we have the project brief PDF. Now this is something that I do personally. You don't have to do this, but for the sake of this tutorial, let's just say that we have to do this, because if you remember, in the client portal, we also give the option to the client to download the project brief if they want to. So if you click on this, they can initiate the download for the project brief. So yeah, you need to attach the project brief PDF right here. And then the same story for proposal, same story for proposal PDF, same story for contract, and then contract PDF. And then you need to put in the start date of the project. When is this going to commence? And that's it for the contracts. So let's start off with the master view. Okay, so we're gonna skip all this, okay, and start from here. So obviously invoices are the linked files coming from invoices, but again, we're not going to be addressing this right now, and you're not meant to be interacting with this right away from here. And then we have the files relevant to this specific project. Then we have the status of this project, which is active, and then we have the start date of this project. Then we have the start date pretty. So we grab that start date and we turn it into a format that we like. We grab that format and then we put it in here. So this start date is deriving from that field right there. Okay, then we have the profile image true and then profile image false. So these, I believe these are coming from obviously this table here. Yeah. Profile image true and profile image false. These are two formula fields that has been created in the clients table that we are now looking it up on the projects table. And the reason why we're doing that is because we want to gather the list of all the relevant record IDs that has their profile image and create an array out of it so that we can render that list. So the same story for profile image false as well. So if I jump over to the dashboard, you'll notice that the profile images here obviously has been rendered from these two columns here, profile image true and profile image false. So these are the two fields responsible for rendering those items. And then we have the profile image true URL. So the ones that has profile images, we want an array of their URL so that we can grab that URL and then showcase that over here. Then we have the first name initial for the ones that don't have any profile image. And then we have client names with image. Then we have a list for the client names and the client names without the image. And that is because we have a tooltip over their head. So you'll notice that we have this tooltip. So to render that name, we have this list here. And all this information is pulled in when the page is loaded up. So when the dashboard loads up, it's pulling in all that information, and then, yeah. So you'll also, another thing to point out is that you'll notice that the URL has this parameter, project record ID. So based on the project record ID, it looks up that it grabs that project and then grabs the relevant client, the invoices, and every single thing that you can imagine, and it loads up the dashboard. That's why we have so many lookup fields only on clients and projects. The rest are quite straightforward, actually. Okay. Then moving on, we have the outstanding total, overview total, overdue total, paid total, outstanding total, pretty. So these are basically from invoices, which we'll be addressing more in details on a later video. So we create the invoices on our invoices table, and then we tally those up in this table. Once we've tallied them up, we create a pretty version of these. But we don't add the currency here. We just make it prettier. So by adding .00, and that's pretty much it. And if we, okay, so obviously we've covered project brief PDF, proposal brief PDF, and contract brief PDF. In case if you're wondering why do we have a lookup field here, it's because these fields are primarily responsible for generating the URL. So, and those URLs are set into these link blocks to initiate that download. So that those links are being set from these three fields here. Again, these are not meant to be interacted with. All right, and then we have the array of all the currencies that we're using, and then this is the currency pretty, which basically decides that based on this array, we are using pounds as the official currency for this specific project. So this currency is then set everywhere. Over here, over here, over here, whoa. And then all over here as well. So yeah, that's what this field is for. Then we have another count field for counting the number of files that we have. And the reason behind this is if I go into the dashboard again, we have this button, which is also a conditional visibility. And if we have more than 5 files, only then this button will show up. And when you click on it, it gives you access to all the files that we have. So yeah. That's that. Let's jump over to Airtable. So yeah, we have the count files that counts that, and then show more files button. It's basically a validator that checks if the button needs to be shown. In this case, it's set to true because we have more than 5 files. As a matter of fact, we have 100 files. So yeah, and because it's set to true, that's why the button is visible. Okay. Now let's move on to agenda. Of course, these are all the linked records of all the tickets created for this project, and then the comments that has been generated and linked to this project. And then we have tasks to do, which is again all. So if I go to the dashboard, just to remind you, we have to do tasks and then waiting for info and then doing QA done. Obviously, within each of these categories, there are plenty of other information that we're collecting as well. So we have task to do, and then we have the task to do record IDs. We collect those record IDs, and then the assignee. So again, it creates an array of all the assignees, and then assigned by, to do priority, task to do complete task by. So basically, the dates that the task needs to be completed by, and then tasks waiting for info. Of course, I'm running through this really quick right now, and how does this actually work in the functionality in Wized? That's something that we'll be focusing on a later video. But for now, I'm just explaining the logic behind these fields. So yeah, that's that for all the tasks. Again, it's just a simple repetition. I believe that brings us to the end of projects table. Perfect. So let's head over to questionnaire. Now, for the questionnaire side of things, again, everything is pretty straightforward. There aren't any lookup fields here, thankfully. So yeah, all the lookup fields are on clients and projects. And okay, so for now that we've created the authentication and the client is going to get access to the dashboard, now you will have to interact with projects and PDF. My advice to you is when you're assigning these, assign it from the respective table rather than assigning this from here. Because it might get confusing for you, you know, because you don't know which link field to interact with and which link field should you avoid. So just to keep things simple and straightforward, if you realize that this client needs to have access to their proposal, so just go to the questionnaire, project brief, then go to the questionnaire, attach the relevant project and the PDF, and that's it, and call it a day. Same story for your proposal as well. Because you're going to provide your client with the PDF, so make sure that the project has been attached and the PDF has been uploaded as well. Same story for contract as well. So the PDF needs to be uploaded, and of course we've already linked the project in this case. So yeah, the project has been linked, the PDF has been linked, and everything's done. And so when the client signs in, they should be able to see all the information for their project. Now, hopefully that wasn't too hard, and I understand that you may have a lot of questions about a lot of things on Airtable, so please feel free to leave a comment, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. And yeah, I'll see you on the next one. Looking forward to getting started on the dashboard build.